it's not until you step back and can look at something really bigger and realize everything really is connected, and you can create the world and the reality that you choose to live in. We're part of something much, much bigger than what we see all around us.
Welcome back to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm very excited to welcome to the podcast today an innovator, a visionary, a creator, and someone that I believe is adding a great deal of wisdom to the history of a town that's very fond and has a great big part of my heart, the place that I live currently, which is Las Vegas. Julie Wignall, welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, this is the thing. This is the common interest, what we love most. The both of us are connected to that passion. And this town is really a powerful place for creativity, has been in the past. I still believe with incredible gems like yourself, it will continue. Let's talk about some of the things in your origins and how you really got where you are today.
Well, first, let me tell you how I got to Las Vegas, which is really kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Because I have an unconventional background in making my way through everything from national politics to international business to marine biology. And I was working in Washington, D.C. as the director of the National Aquarium, which no longer exists. But at the time, it was a tiny, tiny little aquarium. I also worked with the Smithsonian Institution, with the Natural Museum of Natural History, and the National Zoo. And I was working with environmental conservation groups everywhere because I wanted to make the world a better place, right? And here I am, the director of the National Aquarium. And I would have staff members, my education staff would say, Julie, what's our budget for next year? And I'd go, well, that little wishing well that's in the front of the aquarium and the people throwing their pennies in, whatever's in there, you can have, that's your budget. And then I'd be working with these major national conservation groups. And it was always time to do another fundraising campaign. And I kept saying, when do we get to do environmental conservation? When do we get to make things better? It's always time to raise more money. And what I heard over and over again, which I still hear today, it's the fault of those big bad corporations. And I sat down and I thought, corporations aren't bad. People could be bad or greedy and not very aware, but not corporations. And even within the environmental group, people can be bad and greedy. This has nothing to do with if you're dealing with business or not dealing with business. But I thought, what, if you want to make changes and change the world, these guys have money and they know how to do it. The problem is I studied marine biology and environmental science. Nobody taught me anything about business. Nobody taught me anything about management. Nobody taught me anything about leadership, entrepreneurship. I just knew how to be a great environmental activist. That doesn't do anything. And I thought, gosh, if there was the opportunity to work hand in hand as an environmental conservationist, to work hand in hand with the big bad corporate structure, what could I accomplish if I found the right person who was willing to say, yes, let's join hands together and let's make a difference. And out of the blue, I got a call from an architect from Las Vegas, Nevada, that there was some man named Steve Wynn, who I'd never heard of before, who had a vision for remaking Las Vegas and wanted to build a new hotel casino called the Mirage, wanted to put a dolphin facility in the back because he loved dolphins. And my response to him was, oh my gosh, please don't do this. You can't do this. I am having visions, knowing very little of Las Vegas. I'm having visions of this Motel 6, and they're going to put dolphins in this back swimming pool, and they're going to teach them how to pull slot machine handles. This is not good at all. And the architect said to me, I'm not asking you, should we do this? I'm asking you, can we do this? And I went, that's a completely different question. And I went, yes, if you follow the laws, you can do this. And the next thing I know, he's giving me a Federal Express number saying, I expect to have this information on my desk tomorrow. And I went, well, they don't know who I am as far as they're concerned. I'm just the director of the National Aquarium, so I better follow through so that we've got a good reputation. And I did. And starting the next day, they started calling me every 2 hours. We'd like you to come to Las Vegas. Steve Wynn would like to meet you. We'd like you to come to Las Vegas. Now, let me give you an idea of how naive I was in terms of Las Vegas and everything else. I responded by saying, you know what? And they said, when do you want me there? Well, we need you there by the end of this week. This is like a Tuesday. We need you here by Friday. And I said, but if you wait, this is the nonprofit mentality. If you wait 2 weeks, you can get a better airfare. And the guy laughed and he said, are you paying for this plane ticket? And I said, no. And he said, then get on a plane and be here on Friday. And I did. But I was terrified. I went, oh my gosh, this is Las Vegas. And they're going to offer me a job and they're going to want to pay me in drugs. And I don't know how this works. and I said to my staff, if I leave and you don't hear from me, send someone out to find me. Because if I say no, they're going to put cement blocks on my ankles and they're going to send me down to the bottom of Lake Mead. And I came out and I sat down and talked with Steve Wynn. Here's this corporate mega millionaire who is the biggest animal rights activist I think I've ever met in my entire life, said to me, I want to do a facility, but I want the best facility in the world. I want to be really proud of it. I want to make everything that you think that you want to do, I want to do it, and I want to do it better. Well, I came from a background saying you can't trust these corporate people. So I asked for everything. I said, well, this is how big it needs to be. And I gave him 3 times the size that the government says it should be. And I said, and it shouldn't just be an empty place for dolphins to swim around. I want a full artificial coral reef in it. And I want school programs because Las Vegas is a huge and growing education community. And they can't come traipsing in through your casino. So I'm going to need a side entrance that's made. And I don't think that they should pay for the programs that they come in. They can pay for their buses to come or their transportation, but we're going to offer these free of charge. And that means if I have students here, I really can't open to the public until 11 o'clock. And let's talk about the dolphins. I refuse to go and collect any dolphins from the wild for this project. We could, however, go find dolphins that are in need of a place to spend out their golden years, so it's more like a preserve, and bring them that way. And I'm waiting for him to look at me and kick me out of the office and say, well, you're crazy. Absolutely not. And he said, done. Absolutely done. Whatever you can think of and whatever's going to make us to the top, that's what we're going to do. And he was true to his word. That's exactly what they did. And working through a casino, a resort, you don't think about this in terms of environmental conservation. I got to say in everything. But it was how you do this. You know, we were the first hotel and casino in Las Vegas that never sold any furs in any of the retail outlets. The food that was served, the fish that was served was sustainable. But the difference is I didn't walk in and say, you can't do this. I would say, here's a better choice. You know, one of the sayings that we talk about a lot is, you know, it's not revolution, it's solutions. You know, it's like, let's work together. So I got to work with our food and beverage department. I got to work with our retail department. But you have all these people. It became a community project. I'm doing education programs for these kids. We used to dress kids up as a dolphin. Well, you can have all the money in the world and there's no real great dolphin outfits that you can buy just off the shelves. But we had a uniform department. These were all people who were seamstresses and they knew how to design. And it's like, okay, I'm going to reach out to you and you give me the input. You decide what this is going to look like. And, you know, the same thing happened with every department, which was spectacular. For me, One of the very cool things that the corporation did when we first opened was they started a management development program. And I was actually able to study management development for 13 years. It wasn't until I left, though, that went, okay, that taught me great things about management. I was able to learn from our finance officers about the business part and the entrepreneurship part, but that still doesn't teach you what it means to be a leader. And, that's something that I was able to learn from a lot of the leadership that I saw here in Las Vegas of people really taking charge of things and being innovators and not doing something just because everybody else was doing it, to say, no, part of this is we have to take a risk. And because that's how we grow, is through taking risks. And that when the risk doesn't work and it's a mistake, then you come out and you say, this didn't work. This is how we're going to pivot, and we're going to keep going. Which these were great lessons, which is one of the reasons why I put them all kind of together with my story and in the book of The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. And these were lessons that I learned and how I responded to them. But then I thought, if I were reading my book, oh, well, that's good for her. She could do all this, but that's not going to work for me. So I said, I want to go out and I want to find 20 people, groups around the world that are doing it differently, because there's more than one path to the top of the mountain. And just because this is the way I did it, somebody else did it a different way. And then here's somebody else who did it a different way. And imagine this, I'm working on writing this book in the middle of the pandemic. And I am reaching out to all these people around the world because I wanted to say, hey, I'd like to put you in my book, and this is what I'm writing, and I don't want to do cut and paste, and I want to make sure that you're comfortable with what I'm saying about you. And if I gave you the listing of the first group that I went after, you would probably say, oh, I've heard that name, or I've heard of this project, or that sounds familiar to me. And I have to tell you, they all turned out to be fakes. As I got closer, people would say to me, well, yeah, they got this great, huge news thing on that, but they really didn't do the things that they said that they were going to do. Or somebody would say, why do you want to talk to this person? They're such a jerk. And I was like, well, I don't want to put people that are like such a jerk into my book. And it got to the point where I said to my publisher, is there nobody in the world left that's like really got it and doing really great things, and doing things on their own? And she was wonderful. She said, I want you to take a couple of weeks completely off and then start again and just dive deeper. And that's exactly what I did. So my book incorporates not only my story, but 20 people and groups around the world that are what I call true fireflies. And I define a firefly as someone who sees beyond what is to what can be. And then they take action to create a better reality. They're shining their light brighter. And the big thing is you start shining your light brighter and taking risks and putting yourself out there, all those people that are sitting on the sidelines with all their dreams and hopes and wishes go, it gives them permission to say, I can shine my light brighter too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the parallels of how I would initiate someone's alchemy to derive an outcome that would be a completed state. So within a Taoist alchemy process, there's a creation and completion. And completion is what you would refer to as action.
Yeah.
You must be able to align yourself in a
Right.
high state and hold a resonance that maintains what it is that you are aspiring to. And once you replicate that resonance and you hold it, oh, yes, it will be yours, or yes, it will.
Mm-hmm.
So this type of foresight or insight can be as casual as I have an inspiration to approach a goal And this is what is literally keeping me up day and night, and I cannot fight it. It's an inspired divinity that runs through me. I cannot step away from it. It is a driving force. And this is kind of where you start to get a little bit more on the spiritual side in relation to how people acquire these achieving these moments that are so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to say?
And I start out from the premise, we all have these dreams, we have these thoughts, we see these places, and it's like, what stops us? And what stops us is fear. And it's not, oh, I can't do this because of blank, blank, blank. It's fear. It's fear that I'm not good enough. It's fear that I'm not worthy. And it's fear that I'm not deserving enough. So that's, you have to start by doing that inner work to say, okay, we hear those voices, and you're not going to overcome them. You're not going to move past them, but you kind of welcome them in and you have them to the side so that they're not the driving factor of moving forward, because otherwise you can't reach that level of alignment and that vibratory level that you're trying to obtain that can send out that message. It's like a lighthouse saying, this is what I'm looking for, to be able to bring that in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you water everything down and realize that everything is energy potential.
Right.
And energy potential is created from your attention intention. Within Taoism, we refer to that as the initiatory evocation of spirit.
Right.
And when spirit is actualized, then you have dominion over the energy, the material that's within this space.
Right.
And being able to harness that true, eternal, immortal, forever self, which is a pulse, it's a constant, then you become the puppet master to the puppeteering of your reality. And so I guess we're saying the same thing in a different way, but we're arriving to the same destination. And I love that. I think fear in of itself is a concocted sort of fabricated synthetic reality, and when you really get deep into it, you can erase it with the right tools, like deleting an icon on your computer screen. You just need to understand how that works. And if it's watered down as neurology and the understanding of your conscious and unconscious process, or furthermore something a little bit bigger scope, from an all-encompassing unified state, it still gets you to the same place if you can just start somewhere, right?
Exactly. I once heard a great acronym on that in terms of fear is FEAR, false evidence appears real. And I think a lot of what we deal with becomes enculturation. It's what we're kind of fed as this very, very subsurface, this is what you should do. It's like being at the corner of what you should do and what you want to do. And it's not until you step back and can look at something really bigger and realize everything really is connected, and you can create the world and the reality that you choose to live in. We're part of something much, much bigger than what we see all around us. And that's where you get to kind of break those chains of saying, I don't have to live at that corner of should and have to.
Yeah, I mean, a contemplation that is sort of part of the last gasp of breath before someone goes over the edge.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I always encourage people to explore something as basement level in evolutionary alchemy. We always refer to the first, grassroots seeded understanding of conscious and unconscious. So if you're not familiar with something as simple as trance, you need to become familiar with that. And some people might categorize it as hypnosis. That's very contemporary and sort of garbage in definition. Yet when you understand it, you get right down to it. I mean, my kids and I love to play street magic, and we'll go down to the strip and I've taught them many different things, different sensory perception things, everything from energy healing to remote viewing, clairvoyant skills, and they develop the skills on a second by second basis, and they're getting really damn good. I must say so myself, someone who's teaching this stuff for over 30 years. But something as simple as hypnosis, or I refer to it just as trance, it is a state of awareness. And so when you walk up to someone in the street and you ask them, would you like to experience bliss? And, most people in this town are up for a good time. That's the purpose of them being here. So you can start a conversation with someone that is in that same type of state. They want to have a party. So I love starting with that. And I won't even mention the word trance or hypnosis or anything of that kind, because I've conditioned myself to hold a resonance that will literally melt your perception of reality, and you'll go to sleep without me even saying sleep. And people freak out because their friends get their cameras out and they're, okay, so what's going to happen? I imagine, and they're already asleep standing up, and they go, oh, what's going on? I'm like, well, what we're going to do right now is fun, because this is a way of empowerment.
Yeah.
I'm going to become Justin Bieber, and they're going to forget their name. Are you ready for this? It's fun. And their friend is videotaping this, and you put them back into the current frame where they were asleep, they weren't asleep. And it only takes an involuntary notion, because you can touch them just one finger on their body, and it will bring them back to, as if like smelling salts. They'll become straight back into the present moment, and they'll be like, okay, so when are we starting? And their friend's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so, and I start conversation, and the next minute they're like, this is Justin Bieber. Oh my goodness, it's so great to meet you. And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, can I get a photo? And the friend's like, holy shit, this is really happening right now. And this is a state of awareness that is so powerful. And I imagine you have a processes for capturing your own creativity and harnessing it so that you can follow through on the magic and the foresight of something greater with all the things that you've created in your career. What is the magic sort of stuff? Do you meditate? Do you do anything like that? Is there anything that you add to your flavor of the day?
All of the above. And let me tell you, studying science, really big into the quantum field. And what is quantum physics? All it's doing is explaining what mystics have known for thousands and thousands of years, right?
Over here.
But I had a mentor at one point, and I studied in Australia. And as you know, in between Australia, Northern Australia, and Singapore, there are probably over 45,000 islands. And there were one or two of these islands that came to this mentor's attention where people were known to have, now we're going back, so of course the psychic abilities and ESP, because that's when we use that in terms of understanding things and telepathy instead of understanding remote viewing and all the different things that happen. So this mentor went and spent a year and a half living amongst these people and came back, and the insights that he had, which I thought were brilliant, and which you're kind of echoing, talking about your children and yourself, we all have this. We don't work at it. It's like you got to exercise. It's like a muscle. You have to keep going at it. But I can't tell you the number of people, when you become aware of this, that say, oh, I think I had this experience, but no, I don't believe in that. Or I think I saw this. And we dismiss it. And that's that enculturation part of this. And he came back and he said, yes, all these people were doing all the things that everybody had rumored that they were doing. And everybody has different gifts, and they've got their own superpowers in different ways. There was one person in every village that was taught how to go into the water underneath and just to listen. And they were so tuned to listening, they could come up and not only give the 10-day weather forecast, but let you know what ships were in the distance, which were coming this way, which were going on. And of course, people who worked on energy healing, people worked on everything. But he said not only was it real, there were two things that really hit him. Number one, they were much more in tune to nature than we are. Think about it. We're walking on asphalt streets, we're in buildings. We don't always have that connection to remembering that the earth is a living planet, and it's got its own pulse and its beat. But he said probably the biggest thing that hit him was how everything changes when you live within a culture that says, well, yes, of course you can do these things that you say you do. And, you can call it hypnosis, you can call it meditation, you can call it remote viewing, all of these things. And that when you have a culture and society that supports it, oh, you're not crazy, then it gives you permission just to keep working on it and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. Because we all have this. And I work at it a lot, but I start it with, I have a website that has a free download that's called Flying Lessons for Fireflies. And part of getting in tune with that, I say, is becoming more aware of yourself. And it's like, if you've ever practiced yoga, the most important yoga pose they talk about is Tadasana. It's the mountain pose where you just stand straight and you check in with your body. I've worked with people where I'll say, oh my gosh, you're so snarky this afternoon. What happened? Oh my gosh, I have a headache. I didn't even realize I have a headache. And I'm going, how could you not know that your head hurts? And you realize that we're not really aware of ourselves. We don't check in. Once you start doing that, then you also start getting those pings of saying something's off, something's not right. I'm in a situation. Somebody's telling me that they're going to do this for me, but something is nagging somewhere that's telling me I don't believe this. But you start trusting yourself, and you start trusting what you're picking up and working on even more and more. I'm known for, I put in, I call it the grocery store exercise. How do you go to the grocery store? Something just as simple as that, and how many people do you go going, oh, I just finished my meditation and my yoga class, and I'm going to go to the grocery store. And the next thing you know, they go, oh, I'm so aligned, but they're behind the wheel of a car, and they go, that idiot just cut me off. And you're going, how aligned are you really? All of this is like really getting on your nerves. But how much do you pay attention when you go into the grocery store? How much do you go straight for what it is that you want? Do you notice other items that are on the shelf? Do you notice people? What do you do if there's a cart in the middle of the way? Do you push it to the side? Do you say, excuse me, and go around? Or do you find another way around? Would you be aware if there's someone at the end of the aisle that needs help reaching something on a top shelf? And it's just increasing that awareness. And as we increase our awareness of ourselves, we increase our awareness of the world around us. And I think then we open ourselves more into listening to our own instincts, to what we know, and we open ourselves to more of that remote viewing and seeing beyond what's right in front of us.
And that's the present moment. But yeah, you start to realize how powerful you are when you don't participate in the experience.
Yes.
So your finite, incessant, futile mind that repeats its bankruptcy over and over again, looking for something that is not going to be met with further inquiry or more information. It's an experience.
Right.
Experiential moment is what you have.
And it's allowing that experience. I'm actually just returning from a trip to New Mexico. Many years ago, I was working on filming for PBS and became very close with one of the Native American Pueblos. And my husband and my daughter, we were all adopted into this Pueblo. We've been very close to these people for almost 20 years. And we got a phone call just a few days ago that said, we don't know if he's going to make it or not. He's got a kidney stone that is so big, his entire body has gone septic. And we don't know if they can airlift him because there's no hospital that's close by. This is in the middle of nowhere. And I noticed I started having visions of what I thought was a Mayan warrior. Now, if I weren't paying attention to this, I would go, I'm not paying. I don't know, it was just something silly. It's something that came up in my mind. I don't know why, but I kept seeing this vision over and over again. And I started saying, I think I'm having these visions, and I know it's connected to him, and I don't know how, but of this Mayan warrior. And when I finally allowed, I stopped asking questions of where I was saying, I think it's this, and I think it's this, and I just allowed to listen. I get this strong message through, I am no Mayan warrior, I am a Mayan king. And it was like, okay, that came from someplace. Now I think I need to listen even more. And I got the message that, we needed to get in a car and go, and like go immediately. And I actually had a group that I was working with, and I said, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to put this off for another week. Because I know this sounds silly, but when you get a message from a Mayan king, listen. And you jump in, and it was a very, very powerful experience. We were able to go. We needed to be there and experience all the things that were there and to come back. But I've come across so many people that would go, I've had similar experiences, but I just didn't listen to them. And that's where I say part of this is we are all connected to something bigger. We're all connected to ourselves. What is it with the Buddhist student that goes to the teacher and says, how do I treat others? And the response is, there are no others. We are all interconnected. And if we open our eyes and start paying attention, there are whole new horizons.
Yeah. I mean, part of sensory perception development for Taoist alchemy is deeper knowledge or information that is not information. It becomes ancient and it's alive. So we imbue this intelligence into the ether, which is the fabric of reality, and you're able to create from that. So, one of the most ancient tools that we use when it comes to initiatory moments of invocation is what we refer to as the rhapsody. So poetry is so deeply embedded into Taoist alchemy. It goes back thousands of years, and we envelop those words and create charge of what is the present moment using the magic, ancient magic, to commandeer what would be absolutely impossible with an intellectual insight that is absolutely pliable and tangible when you harness these energies. It's for reals. And all of a sudden now, very fundamental things like feng shui, which is very basic, offering for external state transference, and then you are able to alter that tapestry any way you choose to, but it must start with the dominion imperium of the 50 trillion cells that you possess as what you call your human flesh and blood that looks back at you as the avatar. That potential is energy, is 0.07 millivolts of energy potential. And then you're off to the races, because first and foremost is understanding how simplistic physical healing is. It's a very low level transmute distortion. And then we increase that as we ascend and transcend at the same time. Bang! We have Shazam. We have that moment of self-realization. And so when you use these techniques, so you're using people more insight, you teach them to become very familiar with themselves. And from going in, they go out, and then they come back in again.
Yes. And then you use that to navigate through the world. We use it in business, and we use it in, running organizations and affecting change and working to transform the world. That's where it begins, because you hear a message, but you got to stay in tune with what that looks like. And that's part of creating a whole new reality.
Right. So what would you say your most effective implementation would be, like systematically? Because I always tell you there's a method to the madness
There
because
is. And
people,
I,
most of the people I'll just say, most of the people that come to me are, I'm Brahman, I'm cosmic consciousness, I'm a healer, I'm a seeker, I'm a channeler, I'm an auric reading witch, I'm all these things, and it's fantastic, but it's transitory because they do what happens, and I've seen it for over 30 years, and people crash and burn.
yeah,
That normally there's a shelf life. Most healers that I've ever come across die between the ages of 40 and 60, and it just is what it is because they sell what I call sell their soul because
yeah,
they haven't learned how to master the foundation so they can enrich the avatar, and they use their own life force in a default instead of realizing that the energy they're using for healing is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite,
yeah,
and it's not from their own avatar.
right.
And so spiritual bypassing is very common. I see it a lot. What do you do for people so that they don't end up just being candle in the wind?
Well, I call it the firefly path. And we start with awareness, being aware of yourself. And the next thing, because I truly believe that our whole purpose in being here is to be happy and to experience joy. You know, being alive is pretty magnificent. But it amazes me how few people know what makes them happy. So you need to do the work to find out what's going to make you happy. Um, and know what that is, and then know what is your code of values and what are you willing to do for that happiness and what aren't you willing to do, because those dictate choices that you're going to make in terms of moving forward. And knowing what does success look like to you, because success looks like something different to everybody. And really understanding what that is. And then my final step is building community so that we're there supporting each other, that we're there constantly learning and growing and walking that path together. And not knowing, because walking the path, Carl Jung once said, you know, sometimes if the path before you is clear, you're probably walking on someone else's. So we're not taught within our society that it's okay not to really know where it's going to take you. And we're not comfortable with that because we need to know that if I do this, it's going to lead to this and this and this. That's where it helps to have the support system of a community that says it's okay. It's okay to take you time. It's okay to take time off. It's okay to feel like you're growing and make major, that was a cat, I apologize. And letting me know that I need to go for another appointment. But it's what helps us stay on that path to make sure that we know, hey, it's time for you just to take some time for yourself. Now it's time to grow, or to grow in this way or that way. Now it's time to push past boundaries and try something else. But to know that there's a support system that's encouraging and inspiring all along the way. So to do that, like I said, I have a free download that's on my website that's just 5 flying lessons for fireflies just to get people started. And what that does is it puts you on an email list where once a week, I send out just a note. That's my contribution to the world. That's just there as a generous offer to say, you need some encouragement, you need some inspiration, just real short, sweet, and simple, but to remind you that you do matter, that you are important and you are deserving and you're worthy.
And so I'm interested in the 5 points. So what is it that what insight or foresight or recalibrated sight will you obtain from these 5 little exercises?
The five points begin with saying, let's do that dive. Let's start by doing that dive. What makes you happy? Mm-hmm. That's one. What are your core values? What is your desire in your dream? Let's kind of like break it down in terms of what's there. And how do you define success so we know what that's going to look like for you? You know, if you're doing business, it's like, what's the return on investment? Well, if I'm going to do this work to move forward, And oh, I forgot to decide what success looked like for me. And now I'm living in this big mansion with all these cars, but I'm realizing I really don't care about cars and I don't really care about living in a big house. You forgot to define success. You know, what is that going to look like to you? And then how do we bridge that to get to the next step? That starts with awareness. And you can do it as simple as practicing when you go to the grocery store, but focusing on being aware all the time of yourself and the world around you and keeping in mind what you want and focusing on that, because that's going to help raise your vibration to begin to attract it all in.
And so when you focus on it, like, for example, how I describe it for myself is, everything is energy potential. It's vibratory, frequential, and holds resonance. And so to obtain that for more advanced students that are deep in the alchemy, where they're creating at will, whether it's, physical flesh transmuting back to its original state before your very eyes, or magic that is as mundane as, me sitting there. And I don't do it that often anymore because it becomes, my personality gets a little ruffled when I sit at a roulette wheel and I literally have every single black and white pick for the last 30 spins. And I'm getting paranoid that the pit boss is moving over there. Like, what is this guy? How is it possible there's 6 blacks, 2 red, 9 blacks, 9 red, three blacks, 4 red, and this asshole has got every single one of them right. And then my personality gets paranoid because this is what we call sensory perception. You are just using a precognitive accessibility that is a developed skill, but you must continue to refine it and develop it as tangible, where people are more invested in the physical body that make that possible, yet that is a diminished return, whereas what I'm speaking of is absolutely forever and eternal, and it does not diminish. It actually becomes more and more certain. The permanency is more evident. So, that's how I kind of measure that in relation to the alchemy, because it's all energy based. Everything is energy.
Agreed 100%. This has been great, and I have really, really enjoyed this, and I wish I could stay even longer.
I know. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So we have to do this again.
We will have to do this at another time.
I know.
And so I'll put in the social sphere and interweb under this podcast where people can find you. You offer more coaching, individualized stuff, or you're give people a little bit of an understanding of your offerings right now.
All of the above. I do in-person workshops for strategic planning. I call them strategic action plans because that's the only way that they work. I do 1 day, 2 days. I do individual coaching, but I also offer group coaching just to make it more affordable for a lot of people and to help build that community.
Excellent. So I'll have people go out and find you. In closing, what's your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Just that, No, it's, for me, spiritual consciousness involves awareness and growth, constant evolving and change, because there's more. And I've been studying all this for over 40 years, and I'm not standing here as any expert. To me, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip of water. It's being a lifelong student and constantly learning and opening your eyes to know that the world is more than you think it is.
Amen to that. I heard the same answer over 400 podcasts. Everything is individualized to the experience. You say tomato, I say tomato. We're all facets of the same diamond of perfection. And as far as I'm concerned, you're screaming to the hilltop of what I refer to as the prophet's ancient text that comes back from the 80s. It's called the Pepsi Challenge. I'll take the taste test with everybody.
I love that.
Show me the money. Show me the action and effect of what it is we speak of. And that really comes out in experience.
And I love that.
I am very grateful for you. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. We have to do this again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For everyone out there, students, disciples, 126s, and subscribers, go out and check out what Julie is offering and get deep into the incredible ancient indigenous teachings that she has captured from her journeys here on biological planet Earth. And I want to thank you, my friend. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.